The film begins with a newcomer named Gawan. Gawan, despite being married, had secured admission to a prominent finance university and, on his own merit, had topped the university. Everyone was overjoyed. His friend, Cheng, and Cheng's father came to celebrate his happiness, thanking Gayan for being the reason Cheng was able to pass with flying colors. Gayan even offered Gayan a job at his company, but Gayan declined, believing he would secure a good job based on merit. But that was just his imagination. He didn't know that even PhD holders were vying for jobs in this field. Even when he went to apply for a standard internship, he encountered over 400 people, most of whom were also PhD holders. Soon, the hiring process was complete, leaving the village without any jobs. He had now returned, dejected. While searching for a new job, he received a call from a large bank. It was an international investment bank where even highly experienced people were denied opportunities. But Blue Stone had personally approached Gayan for the job and hired him without an interview. Gayan felt nothing wrong. He was overjoyed, believing he was a topper. So, such people must only call toppers. But the truth was that he got this job thanks to his friend's father, who was a major client of Blue Stone and owned his own energy company. At this company, he was appointed assistant to a man named Young and given 6 months to learn the ropes. But we learn that Young was a rather rude man. He disliked Gayan because he had no experience and also because he thought Gayan had graduated from a small university. What could he possibly know? He even prints out his rejection letter as soon as he arrives, telling him to hire someone else as his mentor. Poor Kahan stands there silently at first, then scans the office. He notices a glitch in a formula Jane has been working on the screen. Gayan fixes it, and Young, impressed by his actions, hires him as his assistant for a few months, under the condition that he'll learn quickly and won't bother him too much. Kahan understood everything he was saying. Just then, Young receives a call from a helicopter manufacturing company. They were planning to list their company for an initial public offering, IPO, and needed to prepare a report for helicopter buyers. Young immediately takes Gayan with him to the helicopter manufacturing company. He is warmly welcomed there. The company wanted Young to prepare the report for helicopter buyers while sitting in the helicopter. But this wasn't right for Young. Young was an honest officer. He told the officer that he would first inspect every spare part of the helicopter before preparing a report. At his request, a team of engineers arrived and disassembled each part of the helicopter for him. Young then discovered that the helicopter was in poor condition. Many spare parts had been imported to reduce costs, resulting in a decline in the helicopter's quality. He refused to list the helicopter company. However, the manager was also adamant that his company be listed. So Young halved their company's valuation, forcing everyone to reluctantly sign the contract. After the contract, they left, and we see Young begin teaching Gayan about his company and how it works. He explains how small companies are listed within a large international bank so that people can deposit their funds there. They can contribute their money, which can then be invested in the business, making not only the company but also the stock market and investors. Zhang's words reveal that Blue Stone was the oldest IPO company. Almost every company Zhang had listed so far has been profitable. Gayan also begins working there with full dedication, putting in extra hours in his pursuit of learning. Working here, he discovers many things he hadn't learned or studied. Chand was already impressed, and now seeing his interest, he grows fond of Gayan even more and resolves every single one of his doubts meticulously, even if it means sacrificing his personal time. Wherever Young goes for a deal, he takes Gayan along. This allows Gayan to understand the inside of companies, and Gayan learns a great deal about their transactions. After months of hard work, Young finally assigns Gayan his personal project. He has to analyze all the data of a pharmaceutical company so that it can be listed for an IPO. Gayan diligently prepares the pharmaceutical company's financial report, collecting data from various sources and analyzing it methodically. Finally, the day arrives when the pharmaceutical company must be listed. Dealings begin with the pharmaceutical company's owner, and it becomes clear that this man is extremely cunning. He wanted to list his company not only domestically but internationally, and also wanted to keep his company's valuation high here at Blue Stone. Therefore, he rejected Gayen's financial report, saying, "We will prepare the financial report ourselves, and you guys will just sign it." Chang, who never acted without principles, cancels such a big deal and leaves. Even though this deal would have been a huge benefit to his career. Gayen returns to the office in the dark of the night, deeply disappointed. He wonders why Jung did this. If Jung had listened to him, Gayen would have been able to secure a job. But then the sweeper explains, "You probably don't know Jung. Jung is a very honest officer. Apparently, people here don't like Jung, but everyone buys shares in the IPOs he launches because Jung's analysis is always excellent. He works on principles. This is why people often make huge profits by holding shares for a long time." Gayen felt he had to do whatever he had to do himself, as Jung wouldn't offer him another deal. He looked at several large companies whose IPOs hadn't yet listed. He found a dog food company, about which he first gathered all the information, went to the market, and purchased its products. He prepared an excellent financial report, and then called the company's CEO. When Gayen contacted her personally, the girl was impressed and invited him for a meeting. Overjoyed, Gayen approached Jung and explained how he had worked hard to secure the deal and how he had changed his approach. Jung also liked this approach. He now checked Gayen's report and work, finding all the mistakes and perfecting everything. Together, they set out to speak to the company's CEO. Now, in the very first meeting, both Gayen and Jung realize that the woman has no interest in the deal, nor does she show much interest in Jung, and this makes Jung laugh. The woman even invites Gayen to her house to discuss the IPO in more detail. In the car, Jung explains her intentions to Gayen, saying, "If you don't want to go, then don't go." But this was the first project Gayen had secured on his own, so he wanted to give it a try. Upon returning home, the CEO treats Gayen very well and then, using various excuses, gets closer to him. When Gayen refuses and continues to talk about the IPO, the woman becomes angry and declares, "I'll only give you this contract if you eat my dog's food," from his own bowl. Gayen is offended, but he doesn't back down even at this point, determined to pursue the project. After he ate all the dog food, the woman also signed the contract. Gawahan happily brought the contract to Jung the next day, but Jung realized it was a verbal contract, meaningless. He told Gawahan that they needed to sign a written agreement with the woman before she changed her mind. They then went to her company to meet her. However, the CEO refused to meet them, and it was revealed that the CEO had been playing a game with Gawahan. Using the financial reports she had prepared, she contacted another company and listed her IPO. This deception leaves Gawahan devastated. But Jung assures her that something good will happen to her in the future. Well, a moment later, a meeting of all the company's general managers is shown. They're being asked to sign a new contract by Lee, the head of the company. She wanted to approve any investment of up to 500 million, not just 100 million, without the signature or approval of any general manager. All the general managers, eager to stay in their superiors' good books, sign it, but Jung refuses. He rejects the proposal in front of everyone and leaves, leaving Lee furious. An enraged Lee calls Gayen over and tempts him with the promise of a permanent senior manager position, saying, "If you fraudulently get Jung to sign the company's file, I'll give you a share of the profits from the company's shares, enough to buy you a house." Gawahan, who came from a very small family and had been living on rent, is overcome with greed. Although he, like Jung, was an honest officer, he agrees to Lee's proposal, given his own constraints. As soon as Jung arrives, Jung confronts him, furious. "You know what a vile person Lee is. He's committed a massive fraud in those documents, and the company he's about to list in the IPO has hired workers over the past several years, but not a single technician. This means their products will be 100% technically flawed." Gawahan then tasks Gawahan with researching their technical issues and submitting a report. Gawahan still works diligently, and for a while, it seems as if the greed Lee instilled in him is gone. He works diligently. He goes inside the factory to look for technical faults. He even monitors imports and exports outside the factory, and finds ample evidence against the company. When Gowon brings this report to Jung, Jung is even more impressed and immediately signs his preliminary report, promising to make his position permanent when he returns to Europe. Gowon asks, "What are the chances of my position becoming permanent?" Jung replies, "Over 80%. At this point, Gayen's thoughts about Lee resonate. He had promised 100%. Now greed takes over, and in a twist, we learn that Gowon had obtained signatures on the financial report for another company along with that report. Taking advantage of Jung's trust, he takes the file and goes to Lee. He shows him the file and hands him another file. The contract contained a permanent contract for his job. He was using a rule Jung had taught him against him, saying, "Verbal agreements have no value. You must sign this contract for my job. Only then will I give you Jung's signed papers." Now, as per the contract, Lee takes Gayen to SA company that day. Gayen himself had researched the irregularities, and Lee had obtained Jung's signature on the company's report. When Lee and Gayen are about to sign the contract, Gayen places another file in front of the company owner, containing all the company's inaccuracies. This file contains all the frauds he himself had discovered. Seeing this file, the company owner is utterly horrified. He thinks the contract won't be finalized. But here, we see Gayen's even more treacherous and greedy side. He declares, "We've already fabricated the report. We'll sign, but on the condition that you give us more shares in your company and transfer 5% of it solely to me." The company agrees, and the deal is finally signed. According to this, Gayen now holds 5% of the company's shares, and that too for free. Upon returning to the company, Lee announces Gayen's promotion and his permanent position, and a party ensues in the office. When Jung learns that GA has betrayed him, he is devastated and designs the company himself. Before leaving, he leaves his student Gayen a painting that reads, "A man can be broken, but he cannot be defeated." He now works as a Blue Stone instructor. He couldn't work together because Blue Stone had used his name to deceive him. A few days pass, and we learn that Lee had now become Blue Stone's president, and Gao Han had become the senior general manager. Lee often took Gao Han to meetings where she could gain personal advantage. Meanwhile, Jung had opened her own financial consulting firm, and her company was doing very well. Lee negotiated the IPO launch of a company called Jiang Energy, entrusting it to Gao Han, who owned Gao Han's friend's father. She wanted to take advantage of Gao Han's friend's trust and manipulate him into a cunning scheme Gao Han had no idea was possible. The next day, Gao Han arrived, and Jung's father welcomed him warmly. He begins to tell her about his company, which is an energy company and is currently working on a material that will significantly save energy. This will free ordinary people and small factories from the burden of large international companies that generate and sell electricity at exorbitant prices, and will significantly reduce energy prices. Hearing this, Gao Han says, "This requires a lot of funding. The funding from your first IPO won't be enough. I think you should launch more IPOs to maximize funding." Up to this point, he was completely innocent. He didn't have a sly devious heart, but Lee was the one who was supposed to make all this happen. Through Tohan, she instructs Xing to transfer some of her company's shares to Blue Stock, guaranteeing that their company will be profitable for 2 years. In return, Blue Stock will launch 2 more IPOs, allowing them to produce 2 energy sources instead of just 1. Shaiklard thought for a while and then signed the agreement. Meanwhile, Abley, through one of her managers, played a different trick. She contacted a rival company of Jiang Company and became its shareholder. Although this company wasn't generating much profit, Blue Stock now held shares in Jiang Company, and also possessed all of Jiang Company's personal documents. They told this small company that they would inform them about any research Jiang would do or order for power production materials. By manufacturing that power material, they would soon become as strong as Jiang. On the one hand, they played this trick, but on the other, they played an even more serious trick. They also acquired the material company from which Jiang used to source materials. While purchasing shares in that company, Blue Stock imposed a condition that they would no longer supply the material to Jiang Company, but instead to another, smaller, rival company. Due to this move, Jiang Company, which had skyrocketed after its IPO, plummets, and Jung notices this. All those who had bought Jiang Company shares hoping to make a profit now incur losses. During this, these people cause Gao Han to have an accident, and he is hospitalized. He doesn't realize the immense damage he has caused to his friend and his father. Just as Jiang Company's shares have plummeted, Li plays another trick, buying another 4% of the shares, further driving the company's stock down. She was planning to completely ruin Jiang, allowing her to own more than half of Jiang's company and then run it for herself. Now, reluctantly, Young is forced to agree to all the Blue Stone's conditions. He falls for Lil's trickery in the name of Blue Stone, inflicting a significant loss on his business. The grief of this loss leads him to a heart attack. When Gao Han is hospitalized, he is utterly shocked by the report. Realizing the full extent of the deception, he quickly goes to T's office and lashes out at him. I understand, you only wanted Jiang Company's technical report, for which you orchestrated such a cunning scheme and then ruined their company. Because of this, I won't work with you anymore. Li Bi taunts him, what kind of a gentleman are you? You, too, first supported me for your own success and permanent job, and then betrayed your own teacher. She shows him the mirror and says, I'm not going to do anything with you. You were the fool. You didn't see what I was doing. And today, because of you, your friend's father, who got you a job, is facing death. Hearing this, Gayan is even more devastated, as he always believed he got this job based on his talent. When he realizes he betrayed the very person who brought him to this position, he immediately goes to correct his mistakes. But it's too late. The gangs are now dead, and Chan is furious at Gayan, knowing he was the cause of all this. He beats Gayan severely and sends him away. While Chang's behavior hurts him, he can't say anything to him. He knows this is all a result of his own mistakes. To make amends, he goes to Jung, who was furious with him and didn't even want to see his face. He apologizes to Jung and says, please, if you don't help me, I, along with Jiang Company and all the small investors associated with Jiang Company, whose money is invested and is trapped in Jiang, will all be destroyed. For their sake, Parjang agrees to believe Gayan. Afterward, Gayan goes to his friend and apologizes. He says, I admit that whatever happened to your company and your family was because of my betrayal. But believe me, I never meant to betray you. Li betrayed me. My only mistake was trusting Li and bringing all those proposals to Uncle. But believe me, I want to fix everything and get your company back from Li. Jung and Gayan then hatch a bold plan. Under the guise of a securities company, they buy a large amount of Jiang Company shares and begin to drive up its price. Apparently, a security company was buying all these shares. But in reality, it was all a scam. These shares were being purchased by top chain professional market operators. Li couldn't understand this intention. She had contacted Jian's rival company under the guise of Blue Stone, promising to destroy Jiang. And if she hadn't gained 100% control of Jian, she would have been trapped not just once but twice. To cover this up, she devised another ploy, buying Jian's shares herself, hoping to sell them all at once and bring CN down once again. But Jiang saw through this ruse and invested even more money to buy Jiang's shares, further inflating the market. After this, Jiang blocked Jiang's shares for 2 days, meaning no one could buy Jiang's shares. Li was at a loss. Within these 2 days, most of the shares in Xiang Company were listed in Jiang's son's name, severely damaging Li's contract with the other company. During these 2 days, Xiang's son, Jiang, and Jiang orchestrated another ploy. They created a new company, similar to Xiang's, and lured all of Xiang's technical engineers and senior workers into the new company, luring them with promises of higher salaries and other benefits. This new company was necessary because Xiang had already acquired a significant number of shares. This new company would have been an established company, with Jiang retaining all the shares. 2 days later, when the market opened, Jiang began his real game. He suddenly sold all the shares he had purchased and inflated the price. This resulted in massive losses for Blue Stone, nearly forcing the company to go bankrupt. Since this was all due to Li, Blue Stone now fired Li from the company. Such a massive market manipulation had occurred, and everyone was bound to notice. Chan's company had certainly stabilized again. But now Chang is punished for market manipulation and his company is barred from IPO for 2 years. This wasn't a loss for him, but rather a chance for him to stabilize. Li happily accepts and is sentenced to 1 year. Gohan and Young, who supported Chang, are also sentenced to 6 months each. Li is sentenced to 7 years for fraud and is banned from the market. Later, we see Young and Gayan reunited, now working together for Young's consulting company, which works for the benefit of the masses. She used to do this and the movie ends here showing both of them together in this company.